What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Handmade and Beyond podcast. I'm your host, LL, leader of the handmadeandbeyond.com website and community. I'm a self-employed entrepreneur, an Etsy expert, and business coach who's figured out how to make my entire living with my handmade business. Each week, I'll dive into strategies and success tips to help you with your handmade business, with Etsy, and everything in between. Let's dive in. All right, guys, what is going on? Welcome back to the Handmade and Beyond podcast. Glad to be back with you. Hopefully you guys are doing awesome and everything is going good in your shop, in your business, in your home life, your family life, all that good stuff. As I'm recording this right now, there's some crazy storms happening in Texas and around Texas with the ice and snow, and people are losing power. It's just kind of really bizarre stuff going on. So if you're listening from any of those locations, I'm my heart goes out for you. I'm sorry. I know what it's like to be cold, and cold weather is not fun to begin with. But if you're losing power and you're losing heat, that's not fun either. So hopefully you guys get your power back and things return to normal as quickly as possible. I know another issue is people just aren't used to that kind of weather. You know, they don't have trucks and cinder trucks and four-wheel drive and all that stuff. So when that happens, things get a little dicey, especially if you're not used to driving in it and all that crazy stuff. So very bizarre what's going on. But anyways, hopefully this gets your mind off of that craziness, and we're gonna dive into some Etsy stuff, some business stuff to help you guys out with your business. Today, what I want to talk about is I'm going to give you guys some shipping tips and just talk about shipping in general, just because it's one thing that is really easy, I think, to overlook. And it's something a lot of people just don't worry about until they sell their first item. And then they're like, oh, crap. What do I do? How do I ship it? What's, the best practices for shipping? How do I even have my stuff set up? I don't even remember how I had it set up. Or maybe you have that stuff set up and it's just, there's different ways to look at it, different ways of doing it, so you can be more efficient, more profitable, and all that good stuff. So that's what I want to dive in today and give you guys some best practices and some tips based on my experience. You may have different ways of doing things, and that's fine. There's more than one way to skin a cat, more than one way to do things. I just like to give you my perspective, take it or leave it. Hopefully it helps you guys out and helps you be more efficient with shipping. So the first thing I want to talk about is, and this is something that people run into when they're setting up their shipping profiles within Etsy, is fixed shipping costs versus calculated shipping costs. So when you set up a shipping profile, first of all, you can have it apply to multiple listings so they can have the same profile just to make it easier. So you don't have to set that up every time with every new listing. If you're shipping stuff that's the same size, the same weight, you can set up a shipping profile that accounts for all your listings, or at least some of those listings. So it makes it a lot easier. But you have the option to do either a fixed cost, where it's like, say, $5 across the board, no matter what, no matter where the customer is, they will always pay $5. Or you can have Etsy calculate it for you, where if you're shipping to California from, let's say, Florida, it's going to be a little bit more expensive than if you're shipping from Florida in state. It's going to be a little bit cheaper based on the buyer's address. They will give you a calculated cost on what it actually costs, or give the buyer a calculated cost. So there's going to be no overpayment, underpayment. They're going to charge the customer exactly what it costs to ship. When you print out the shipping label, you're going to pay exactly what the customer was charged, and that should cover shipping in its entirety. Now, if you're doing fixed costs, you could go under, you could go over, depending on what the cost is and who is buying it. So there's some variety of different reasons you would want to use these different either fixed or calculated. So fixed, maybe you don't want to charge them. Maybe you don't want to charge them the full amount that it actually costs. So for example, if the average shipping cost is like $4, maybe you only want to charge them $3. So you're going to be losing $1, but it's also going to be a really good shipping cost too. Pretty cheap, pretty inexpensive. So that's one reason that you may want to do it. It's just for a sense of ease. So you always know no matter what, a buyer has to give you pay $5 for shipping across the board. Now it's going to, when you go and buy the shipping from Etsy and print out the labels, it's going to charge you different costs. So it's not really going to be the same anyways, but you may just want to have a fixed cost across the board, just to, so you know it's like that no matter what. Um, and calculated costs, like I said, just makes it a lot easier, so you know that it's going to charge them what it costs to ship. Now, with the exception, if you have free shipping set up and they qualify for that, then it's shipping is going to be free. They're not going to pay anything. So it doesn't matter if you have fixed costs or calculated costs. They're always going to pay, or they're not they're not going to pay for anything. But maybe you want to charge. So another reason to do fixed costs, I forgot this, is maybe you want to charge a little bit more for shipping. So if shipping costs $4, maybe you want to charge $4.99 or $4.25 or something like that, so you make a little bit of money on shipping. I wouldn't recommend probably doing that because people just don't like to pay for a lot of shipping. So if you start gouging people on shipping, they're not going to like that too much. So it's best to charge what it costs, or maybe even a little bit under. If you try to make money on the shipping, that doesn't always go well, but you can try it. People do it. I've done it before. As long as it's not a lot more, it could still be fine. So those are the kind of the differences as far as fixed versus shipping costs, fixed versus calculated shipping costs, rather, that you guys can set up, and different reasons for doing each. The next topic I want to hit on is with international shipping. So this is something that trips a lot of people up. First of all, they don't know if they should offer international shipping. And really, they're not sure of how to set it up, because international shipping can be a little bit challenging for a couple of different reasons. For one, it's not hard to set up. And really, you just put in your shipping profiles. If you want to ship internationally, you can do it across the board to ship to any country, or you can set specific countries. So maybe you don't want to ship to certain countries. Maybe you only want to ship to, say, Australia and UK or something like that. You can set that up in your shipping profile to make it a little bit easier. If you don't care, you can ship it across the board and set it to calculated shipping costs, and you'll know that you'll always be covered there. Because that is the challenge with international shipping, is the cost varies widely depending on countries. So if you have a fixed cost for international shipping, you could lose a lot of money if you don't have that set high enough. Some countries are over $25 to ship an item that's 4 or 5 ounces. So it's really crazy. And then other countries are 12 or 13 bucks. Either way, it is more expensive. But if you're going to do it, probably calculated shipping is going to be the way to go. The other thing to keep in mind with it is there are problems with international shipping that you don't have control over sometimes. So there's going to be more hands touching your item. It's going to be going farther. So there's more chances that it will be lost. Now, in my experience, it hasn't happened a ton, but it has happened. So you got to be careful of that. If you're shipping one of a kind, very expensive items, you may want to consider not going international unless your audience is international. If you have a big international audience, then you may not have a choice. You may just have to take that risk. So that's something to consider with international shipping. The other thing is some countries charge duty fees, import fees, depending on the country. Now, those are hard. You could probably look them up, but you can't really get the customer to pay for those up front, and you don't really know what they are. They change. So you may want to update your policies to let them know that, hey, if your country has these fees, you're responsible for them. So you're subjected at your own risk to purchase from the United States to your country, because they honestly should probably know what those fees are, but a lot of them don't. So they contact you upset. So just put it in their policy section, because some of those fees are very expensive. So it's one of those things that you have no control over if a country wants to charge these fees for duty fees or import fees. So just be mindful that could happen on some occasions. But that's pretty much it. So it's you just have to determine, make sure the costs are right with international shipping, and make sure if your audience is there, you do want to make sure to ship international. Now, if you're, like I said, if you're selling expensive stuff, you may want to really look into it before you do that, because it can, if stuff gets lost, chances are you're not going to get it back and the customer's going to be unhappy. So if you don't have another one to send them, granted, it's going to be very expensive to send them another one anyways, but if it's a one of a kind thing and it gets lost, you guys are both going to be left in the cold, as they say. So you're going to have to figure out what you want to do there. If you want to refund them and eat that cost, probably is what you're going to have to do to keep the customer happy, because you don't want to have them leave a bad review. But just consider that before you ship international. There is more risk, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a reward for doing it. The next topic I wanted to touch on is third-party shipping. So if what I mean by this is, if you don't use Etsy shipping to print your labels, maybe you use like stamps.com or something that integrates with Etsy. There are people that use that. I personally prefer just to print my labels on Etsy because everything's integrated. It's pretty seamless. I can print out all my labels at once, have that stuff all set up. The reason why you may want to use a third-party shipping service is because if you sell on multiple platforms, it could integrate all of those together. So you could print all your labels from all your platforms in one place. For example, if you sell on like Etsy and like eBay and like Amazon, it'll import all three of those into one dashboard and you can print them all out together. So that may make it easier. They do offer discounts, which may be another reason to do it. From what I've seen, uh, they're pretty similar to what Etsy offers, because if you print through Etsy, they also give you a discount, a shipping discount. So what I've seen, it's pretty close. You may find a new one that it gives it substantially cheaper, and that may be a reason to do it. Um, Saving on shipping costs is always something that we're looking out for with online businesses, because those costs do add up. But those are really the main reasons to use one that I see, because it may make it a little bit easier on that end. But I personally just like to use the good old Etsy shipping platform. It works well. It's pretty fast, and I can do everything at once. But I don't sell a ton on other marketplaces either. If I did, maybe I would reconsider that. The next thing is shipping big items. So this is always a challenge, because if you ship really big items, you may not even be able to ship them UPS or FedEx or USPS, depending on what it is. Usually you can, but then you're going to be shipping at a very expensive cost, especially if they weigh a lot. So that's something that you have to look into. So if you sell furniture or big items like that, it doesn't mean you can't do it. It just may not make sense to ship them FedEx or UPS, because it may be really expensive. The other option that people have used is Greyhound, which sounds weird. I know it's a bus company, but they do, people do ship through those big items, large items. I'm not sure. I haven't personally used it, but I know it's there, and some people use it to ship big items like furniture and stuff that's heavy, and it's a lot more affordable. So that may be something to look into if you have huge items. Otherwise, it's something that you have to make sure that you know that beforehand, how much it's going to cost to ship it, because there's nothing worse than selling your item and you're all happy about it, and then you go to ship it and you realize that shipping is just in the same amount of money that you just made for profit. You're going to have to put that into shipping, therefore not going to make any money or very little. And I've ran into that before, not even with big items, with smaller stuff that was heavier. I didn't weigh it. I didn't look at the dimensions. I just assumed that it was a cost and was way more expensive. And then I had to eat that cost and virtually made nothing for the work that I just did. So just make sure you do your due diligence and your research to make sure what it's going to cost before you even list it, so you can work that into your margins and still make money at the end of the day. All right. So the next topic I wanted to talk about with shipping is returns. So this is something that you can set up in your policies section. If you do want to accept returns, it's part of pretty much the default policies now that Etsy has. You can change the time frame of when they have to contact you and then when you have to get the item to return it. So make sure that that's set up in your policy section. And then the other thing that you have to consider with returns is, are you going to offer a prepaid shipping label for people to return stuff? So that means you shipped it to them, whether they paid for it or you paid for it because it was free shipping, and then they want to return it. So then you would have to pay for shipping again. So sometimes it would be a double dip to send the item back. So I personally do not offer a prepaid shipping label unless it was my mistake or there's something wrong with the item. Then I will gladly offer it. But if someone just gets the item and they have buyer's remorse and they don't want it, then they have to pay to ship it back, and then I will happily refund them. So just consider what you want to do there for your business, and what makes sense. But a lot of times, there's usually not a lot of returns, depending on if you run a solid business, or shouldn't be a lot of returns, but they can add up over time. So you don't want to be paying for shipping twice, especially. Now, there may be instances where maybe it's not your fault, maybe the item was fine, but you kind of know that the way that the customer reached out to you, they're already fired up. They're probably going to be a pain. So it may just behoove you to just give them a prepaid shipping label up front, to avoid just to avoid problems down the road, because there's always those customers that that they're going to be probably yell from the rooftops, probably give you a bad review. So just, yeah, it's worth a couple bucks sometimes to give them a prepaid shipping label. Um, Now, the other thing too is if your item's super expensive to ship, then that's another reason to consider, or figure out if you want to offer a prepaid shipping label. Because if it's expensive, if it's 50 or $100 to ship, that may not be something that you would want to do. The other thing that you can do too is consider if you want to offer a restock, or want to put in your policies that they have to pay a restocking fee. That's a pretty common practice for big box stores. They make customers pay a restocking fee. So if you have a pretty large item, you may want to do a restocking fee too. But that's if that works for your business. Just another thing to consider when it comes to returns. The last thing I wanted to talk about is lost items. I kind of touched on this briefly before, but it will happen where the USPS or wherever you're shipping it will lose an item. So that could be a problem, but just make sure to consider that beforehand, what you're going to do. The easiest, most viable solution is to offer the customer a refund, even though it wasn't your fault. It definitely wasn't the customer's fault. But the only solution is to offer a refund or offer to send them out a new item. In both of those cases, you're losing money, but the ultimate goal is to keep the customer happy, and then hopefully they'll come back and buy from you again. Now, if it's a one of a kind item, that hurts a little bit more. If it's a very large item, that hurts a little bit more. But at the end of the day, you may have to still eat those costs to keep the customer happy, and make sure that they're going to come back and leave you a good review. And that's really what you want, to make sure that they are happy. Now, if the item shows as delivered, that's another issue if they say they didn't get it. So a lot of times what you can do is tell them to speak with the neighbor, speak with, if they live in an apartment, speak with the office, the front office. So a lot of times that will remedy the situation because it was delivered to the wrong place or the front office has it. So I would approach that first to kind of do a little bit of problem solving, to see if you can figure out the mystery of what happened to the package. Does anyone else live at the house? Could anyone else have grabbed it? Sometimes those questions, as long as you're presenting them the right way, not accusing them, can help them solve the situation. Now, if it shows as delivered, and they still can't find it, don't have it, then it's up to you if you want to supply another one or give them a refund. Chances are, if they do submit a claim through Etsy, they're probably going to lose because it shows as delivered. But there's nothing wrong with still trying to make it right, even though, it's 100% not your fault and it just shows as delivered. So it just depends on the item and the value, what you want to do there. Also, if they're being kind of shady, which usually doesn't happen on Etsy, the buyers or the customers are pretty good. I got to give them props, but you just never know. So if it's something that seems a little weird, that may be something to take a step back and figure out what you want to do there too. But that's it, guys. Those are some shipping tips to help you out. See if you can set up your profiles a little bit better. Make sure your policies are ironed out. Make sure you give some thought into what you want to do as far as some of the policies and some of the things that just will come up inevitably over time, those things, the problem areas will creep in. When it comes to shipping, it's just part of the business. Luckily, it's a very, very small percentage. And especially if you do your due diligence on the front end, figure out how you want to handle those situations. It will help you breeze through them when they come up and know exactly what to do. So hopefully that helps you guys out. Outside of that, I will be back with you next week with a new shiny episode for you. If you guys are listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you're listening, I'd appreciate a 5-star review. It really helps me reach more Etsy peeps. And continue to bring new content for you guys. So I'd really appreciate that. I read every review, good or bad. I'm not perfect. Some people don't like stuff that I say, and that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion, but hopefully I am bringing stuff to brighten your day, gold nuggets to help your business grow. That is the main goal of the Handmade and Beyond podcast. But I'll be back with you guys next week. Until then, happy selling. Have an awesome rest of your day.